This is either going to make it right or it's never going to work again. Here we go. Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the Mr. Fix-It channel. Got my Polaris 400L in the shop again today, and I recently acquired a title for this quad, so I was able to take it out to the Pike County State Park and go for a nice hard ride. I did come across a few issues, we'll go over those, and I need to make a place for a license plate. Stay tuned. Okay, so the first issue that I had with this while I was out there at the park is back here. And the chain come loose and the sprocket bolts are wallowed out, so the sprocket's coming loose, and if it wasn't for four-wheel drive, don't think I would have made it back to the truck to tighten that chain. Okay, so next issue is the battery ran down while I was riding and stopped, and then when I restarted I had to use the pull start, so we need to check the charging system. One more thing, the rear shock is blown. Some of the oil's leaked out of that, and at times there's like no rebound. And another issue I had is some of the hills out here at the park are pretty steep, and when I had the gas valve turned on the on position, going up some of the hills I was starting to run out of gas, so I was having to run it on reserve because the fuel pickup in the tank is at the front of the tank, not in the back of the tank. If it was in the back, then you'd be fine, but in this quad it's in the front, so you might keep that in mind before you do any steep climbs with this.
Here we go, we take it off. Park is packed today. Came this way. We've been here before. Yeah, we came down that and went back up there. I'm trying to get up on that hill where the road is. You know how to get there? It's like one of the first trails to the right out of the parking lot. Not the first one because it's a loop. If we go that way, it's the second one. We can get back to the parking lot. We'll try.
I was sitting out there in the shed one evening, not doing too much of nothing, just kind of staring at the wall. And
Alright, where I'm going to start here I think is the charging system. I've got my meter out here, and I'm just going to first check the battery voltage. 12.14. Yeah, that's low. I'm just going to start it up. Once I turn the headlights off, the battery did kind of recharge a little bit, enough to use the electric start. So I'm going to start it up, and we're going to check the voltage at the battery with it running. About 14.5 volts, that's what I would expect to see. Let's check for an overcharge. I'm going to rev the engine up. That's exactly what you want to see. It did not increase in voltage by much. I'm going to turn the headlights on. Okay, that's the low beam. Rev it up. Get a little more voltage for the headlights, that makes sense. This high beam. All right, let's rev it up again with the high beam on. Watching the battery voltage trickle down here. It'll eventually settle out. So looks like the charging system's working. It should be 12.6. 12.3 volts, the battery's getting pretty low. 12.1 volts is what we checked to begin with. That was very low. Thinking this might be connection problem here at the battery, or the battery is starting to go bad. So I think I should pull the connections off of the battery, pull the battery out. This battery hold down is not really working. I need to do something better with this because this is wiggly. So let's do all this. I think I'm going to start by taking the rear fenders off. I think that'll be the best thing to do. Give me plenty of access in here to the battery, and when I go to back here work on the rear axle. So let's take the fenders off. Alright, right up here next to the battery, here's one of the 4 bolts you got to take out. Alright, get your 1/2 inch short socket and a 3/16 Allen wrench. This is an Allen on the back side. If these have not been out of here before, then you're going to have some fun with this. And you got one back here above the tail light. And then 2 more on the other side in the same place. Now, if your quad is more complete than mine, and you'll have 3 screws here instead of just 1, and then there's 4 here instead of just 2. And then you're going to have some bolts down here on the 4 board. Alright, because my overflow reservoir is back here, I got to take the cap to that off. And then I should be able to just lift this off. Alright, now we got a much better look. And yes, this is my overflow reservoir for the radiator. Used to be there, right? I'm going to go ahead and disconnect this all from the battery. I have an extra power wire here because that runs my plow. You see, these connections are very rusty. This is probably my problem. I'm going to get this connection cleaned up also. This starter relay is very crusty, and I have a replacement unit, so I'm going to take this one off. So it's a T25 on this side and a 3/8 on this side. And it just broke off. And so did that one. Yeah, it's very crusty. It still worked, but I think I'm going to replace it since I got another one. Alright, so this is not a new unit, this is a used one, and I just want to make sure that it works before I put it on the bike. How you do this is the metal strap on this is the ground side. This red wire coming off here, this is the positive side to activate the solenoid, and then these are the 2 starter wires. So I've got my meter set to continuity, and when I touch the metal strap and the wire to the positive and negative, this should make a clicking sound, and that should show continuity, and I have it set on the alarm setting, so it should alarm. Okay, this unit works just fine, so let's put this one on there. Since this grounds through the strap, that means it's grounding to the battery box. This battery box is welded to the frame, so there's no other connections other than where it mounts to. So these got to be clean here. There's like little raised humps. I believe somebody at some point cut this box open to fit the wrong battery in here. Alright, I'm going to assemble all this with grease. No special grease required here, just some sticky old grease. Just worried about the rust. Rub some on here. There's 2 star-like washers. These are for grounding straps. Got one of these on each one of those screws. Wherever you live, you might not have to worry about rust, but here in Ohio, we get rust. Don't get carried away, tighten these down. You saw how easy they broke. Just get them snug. Now, just in case someone asks, why am I not using dielectric grease? Dielectric grease is meant to insulate. I don't need to insulate anything here. There's not enough voltage or amperage for any of the energy to leak from here and short to ground or cause funny business. That dielectric grease, really, you want to put it in your connectors where you have multiple wire connectors. So you don't want juice jumping from one pin to the next. So that's a good place for dielectric. Right here, just trying to stop the rust. Get a lock washer and a nut. Hopefully this won't be an issue for a long time from now. I wire brushed all the nuts and washers and everything, so everything should be clean, and hopefully I don't have to come back in here for a while. These things don't really do much other than trap water. They need to be sealed right there. Alright, I'm pretty sure this used to have like a plastic battery cover on it and a rubber strap with two metal ends to hook here and here. I'm sure that's how it was from the factory. Now, I don't care about going back to factory. I want this battery to not move. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to attach this aluminum strap. Mark it right there. Yeah, this was just laying in my scrap pile already bent, so I figured I'd use this. I just figured I'd take this opportunity to get a little fancy here. This is just a chunk of heavy rubber that I saved from somewhere. Brand new battery box. I lost the receipts to it though. That ain't going nowhere. Unless of course the wing nuts back off. There, this needed to be done years ago. Next thing I want to work on is the rear sprocket hub. If you watch the sprocket compared to that bolt there, you see how that's loose. So the last time I tried to take this off, the sprocket hub would not come off. So probably have to get some heat in there. I'm going to take the chain guard off, take the chain off. I got to get this hub off, these two big nuts, and then that guy. 1.1 inches. Still looks like brand new in there. I don't know what size this is. I don't have a wrench that big, so I'm just going to use a pipe wrench. Don't do this. Just get a wrench if you got one. But I'll tell you what, if you have to, pipe wrench. Now I have the parking brake set so the wheels won't turn. I'm trying to sneak a wrench back in here. There's a spacer on this too. Wow, that took a whole lot of persuasion, but we sat down, had a nice talk, and we worked things out. Alright, this is being very stubborn, so I'm trying to heat shock it, hot, cold, hot, cold. Okay, got my replacement sprocket and hub. I wire brushed down the entire axle, so this should slip on there nice and gentle like. Yeah, just like that. Now, I was beating on the end of the axle, and you should never do that. I did have the nut on the end, but it's still mushroomed this over. Now I ground down the mushroomed over bit, but I can't quite start the nut. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rethread these, and these are a 3/4 16 National Fine thread. Like it never happened. And yep, I'm gonna lube this guy up for sure. Grease on these threads. If I have problems with these nuts coming loose, then I will clean this grease off and use Loctite. I'm gonna get the washer first, and then one nut. They look like they're both the same, so I don't think it matters which one goes on first. Even though this looks brand new in here, I'm still gonna grease her down. And you got your hub. And we got two washers. The little washer goes on first, then the big washer, because the big washer is what the end cap hooks onto, so you need that space between there. Alright, I think while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and take the chain off and clean and lubricate it. Alright, the chain is nicely cleaned and lubed. Careful touching that brake rotor with oily hands. Alright, I'm going to slather this master link in grease. I lubed the chain with gear oil. Alright, now I can apply the parking brake again. I can tighten everything up down there. Yeah, I know, I hate using a pipe wrench too. I'm going to reuse the same pen because I don't have another one. Thing isn't so rubbery anymore. Some literature for you. Okay, I didn't mention this in the previous video, the video on how do you work on this thing. There's actually another grease fitting back here, and if you look close, the one closest to us, that is the swing arm pivot. The one further in there is the transmission output shaft that drives that brake rotor and the sprocket to the front drive. That needs grease too. Alright, see if I can get this back in here. This actually has somewhat of an adjustment on it too. Half moon shaped bolt hole there. Although it's not easy to get this nut in there. Stick the nut in the wrench, feed it in back here. Alright, there's a small project I want to do next. It's going to go right here. Underneath, right there. Right there. This is called a J-beveler, and I'm going to use this part of it to make like a seam or a bead on the edge of this to give it just a little bit of rigidity. Alright, I pulled my rear shock off. I want to try to do something to this. It was stuck, caught the spring right there. I'm gonna go clean this off in the sink. Alright, so this shock has kind of lost some of its oil. I think what I'm gonna try to do, this shock is not rebuildable. See, this bushing's coming out. I may not be able to rebuild it, but I may be able to add some oil to it. Oh boy, what am I about to do here? This is either going to make it right or it's never going to work again. Here we go. Trying to get as much of it out of there as I can. Yeah. Alright, so it looks like I got almost 3 ounces or 85 milliliters of fluid out of there. Now I have to account for the losses that are still in this cup and the losses that dripped out onto the bench, plus the losses that this thing has already leaked. So I know I need to put at least this much back in it, and that's where I'm going to start. Now, the only thing I got here is fork oil, so I'm just going to use some fork oil. I'll cover up that hole with my thumb, and I'll hold the shock straight up and down, and I would pump the shock until I didn't hear any air bubbles. So I put about 7 ounces or 200 milliliters of fluid in here until I got it to where it felt like it was going to work good. Made a little plug, got a little gasket. Hopefully that won't leak. Oh yeah, it's brand new shock. I lost the receipts though. Now I cannot recommend anybody do this. I just did it to see if I could do it. Now it's just how well will it hold up. Good time to check if your chain tension is correct is when you got the shock off, because you can lift this up and see how tight it gets when it's all the way collapsed. That's why you gotta make sure that's right. I'm thinking I might leave the rear rack off of this and maybe even take the front rack off while I'm trail riding to reduce my risk of getting rib racked, if you know what I mean. 2 of these 7/16 bolts. There's one at the bottom of this and the bottom of this. This one over here has got the voltage regulator in the way, but you can sneak a wrench in on this side to get it loose and then get your ratchet with an extension up underneath there. And then inside here you got 2 more of these Allen head bolts with the 1/2-inch nut on the other side. Yeah, it looks quite a bit more sporty this way. Well, that's all I got for you this week. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and don't be afraid to fix it. Thanks for watching.